version of Zoom isn't working. Okay, now it's recording. Thank you, Alex. Sorry about that, guys. I thought it was. Whenever I get on my machine, I hit Alt R, which is the hotkey to record. So apparently it didn't go through. It's funny how it works sometimes in some classes, and then other times that doesn't work. I don't know if I need to restart my computer or what. Does that make sense? You know,
Yeah.
by look at this, by establishing a little bit more of a mid ground here, look at how we take us on this pathway. Then you could have this wall structure, you know, up in here that goes around part of the city. It's going to help to frame it and capture it. Then when you get up here, you have a wider path, and then you can have, then you can introduce the narrative. You could have, you know, a carriage in here with a horse, and you could have a guy standing with a flag and make it look like they're on this journey going back to this this castle area. Okay.
Okay.
So that's what I would do. I'd either do one, I do number two. They're all gorgeous. They're all very nicely done. Um, and I still like number eight quite a bit. But you know, same thing on number eight. Like you have this chance to block in a little bit more foreground there, a little bit more midground there. Then you can create this really cool path that's going to come down there. It's going to curve in here, and I that blue looks like a waterway. Is that supposed to be water?
Oh yeah, I was thinking something like that.
Okay, that could be water, but you could still have a path of rocks and a walkway that goes up around and moves over part of that water too.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right, sure, my pleasure. Hold on a minute, there it goes. All right, cool. Um, yeah, I like what you're doing with that green. That green arrow is really pivotal because it's making you think about the direction on how you would get there. There, you did a really good job with it. But you got to be careful of the height sometimes. Sometimes the road wouldn't go straight up like that. It's going to zigzag and maybe come up to maybe like the front, or it might zigzag and come up to like the side, and then you can have an entryway to the city. All cities have, I know we're not used to seeing this inside the United States, but if you ever travel around and you go to like Spain and you go to Greece, and I've been to Morocco um, and other parts of the Mediterranean, they have, you know, you're talking an older time period where they have fortified walls and an entryway into the city. That's really, especially in the Asian culture, that's really dominant, especially in parts of China. You have like these large protective walls. I know it's the same thing in Thailand. It's the same thing in parts of Korea too. You're going to have these really cool protective walls that protect part of the city. So you could use that to your advantage to have these pathways that allow you to sort of wind up and they come to those walls and then they lead you inside your city location. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Good job, sir.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Can't wait to see how you develop those. A really nice composition. All right. Rachel,
Hey.
that looks a lot better.
So I think I kind of came to a stopping point last night. I was like, you know what? I know that that bridge is completely under the horizon, as I can see the top of it as I'm drawing it in. But I think where I'm struggling for my next step is like, okay, establishing the horizon line, actually making sure the castle looks structurally sound as it's built on there. I want the light to come in from the like 1/3 like left
Okay.
top. So I'm kind of putting that in or hinting it in on the bridge, the tunneling under it. But as far as just this, I'm worried making sure things are structurally sound.
Okay. So let's go back to go to like perspective 101 here, and we'll help you block that out a little bit. Yeah, because you wanted your piece is completely ready for texture. You're totally ready to dive into that and get some texture going. So your horizon line is about right there, okay, in your piece. So let me see if I can draw that a little bit. Now let me switch brushes here. Use my drawing brush. That works a little bit easier. And then we switch to like a light blue. So your horizon line should be, I'm going to say about right, anywhere about right there, as long as the bridge is going to be underneath it. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is let me zoom in real quick. And what you want to do is we want to set up some vanishing points that are working inside there. So hold on, let me adjust navigator real quick. So what I would do is whenever we're dealing with, and by the way, those of you guys that haven't had a really good perspective class, I'm probably going to offer it again next semester because we had so many students that took it and that filled it up. So I would highly recommend, if you really don't know a lot about 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 4 point, 5 point, you don't know how to apply it, come take the class with me. I think you'll really learn quite a bit. We need to have vanishing points outside of the picture frame. That's going to be imperative, or else we're going to have a wonky feel to this. So I'm going to pretty much go to the edge of your canvas right here. And I'm going to create what we call a measuring line. And the measuring line, the purpose of that is when I have a vanishing point, I'm about 4 inches off the canvas. I can come in here and I can throw in the angles that are relative to that particular vanishing point. And then that way, when I match up my ruler, all I have to do is match it between these little marks, which are going back to the vanishing point. Okay. All right. So with that said and done, now what I would do is I'm going to throw a couple guidelines in here. So you're somewhere about like here. You should have lines would be going up this way. And then as we go up every level in the castle, we're going to be adjusting like this, sort of like that. And then as we go down, which is actually matching pretty good, you're going to have these lines that go like this. So you can come in here now and figure out like, hey, how does this mount to part of the rock here? And then does the structure go like this? Does that wall come up here? But now we need to come back. Before we start doing that, I use those trace lines as guides. Let's come back here and let's do the other side too. So we're going to I'll put that VP a little bit closer, right in there. And I'm going to do the same thing. I really like measuring lines because I don't have to always go to the VP. So I'm going to come back in here, hold my ruler in there, and then match up these angles. And that's one of the tricky parts with the castle, is that we have to come back to a linear drawing. Hold on, made a mistake there. We have to come back to that linear drawing to get that construction in there. And like I was just talking a couple minutes ago in the beginning of class with another student, that structure is going to dictate the light. Is we're going to see the light side, the dark side, and the castle needs to really feel like it's constructed properly and working. Okay, there. So I have all of those lines in there. Now what that allows me to do, it allows me to come in here and figure out like this angle. If that wall were to come this way, it would go in that angle. Let's say this wall dips down and goes like this. Now I'm going to look back here, looking at that. Maybe this wall comes back out again here, and then maybe part of the structure then goes back here. So this might be part of the outlining walls of the castle. What I do is I do a base block in first, then I turn off all the other layers. I go back in and add in detail. Okay, so let me do part of that base block in first. So I'm trying to look at the mountain range that's here, and I'm going to start wrapping it in my brain with like rubber bands, thinking like, hey, this is going to drop like this. Maybe part of this drops down in here. So there might be rocks in here. This might be a little bit more steep like a cliff. And then you have part of this structure, which is, if we come back to the vanishing point. Now, here's where you might make a little adjustment. This is going to a vanishing point right there. Okay.
I see. Okay.
You see, so we might need to just very lightly come in here. It's not going to be much of a change. You can do it with the transformation tool. I'm going to bring it there, and it's going to go to there like that. Then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put like an entryway, like type of entrance to the city. And then now I could see a little bit more of what's happening in here. Let me zoom out just a little bit more. There. So now I can figure out, hey, if I have an archway there, that's the entry to the city. This would be sort of that side wall, and my line's going to drop down because my arch is going to be about right here. It's going to come up underneath that, support that. So now I could really get a good feel of how the form and of the objects are happening down here. And I'm just sort of wrapping these rubber bands. I could even come down and start wrapping rubber bands like this around the shape to get a better idea and feel of what's happening with that sort of mountain range that's in there. So that gives me a better idea. And then if I come in here, there'd be a little side conjoins to about that. Then I could come in and start addressing some of these other walls in here. So I might have, I made a mistake. I'm doing all this on the same layer. I thought I created another layer, but I didn't. So I'm just going to have to sort of wing it here. So now I could come in here and think about, hey, maybe I have a large structure back behind there. There might be, this wall might continue forward, go back in here, and then it might recede back this way. I might have a large structure maybe in the back. Hold on a minute. So I made a mistake. I meant to do this on another layer. Now it's going to be sort of a pain in the butt, but now I want to have, let's say here, I'm going to have a line that goes up, and that line's going to come, oh, come on, pick that color. It's not doing it. There. And I just do everything as wedge shapes to figure out what the construction is inside the piece right now.
Okay, yeah, I was just like, with the shapes, I was like, okay, this feels right, but I'm going to specify that in tomorrow's critique, because I want to make sure before diving
Yeah,
into.
and I know it can be a little intimidating to get in there and figure out some of this, but then once you start doing it, it'll sort of click, and then you'll get like a really good idea of what's working, what's not working. And then this is only my first pass, so I could easily go back into this castle and take some other passes at it to finding out these little edges in there. But this is actually perfect that we're talking about this, Rachel, because everybody else is going to have to do this too. They're going to have to, this is one of the hard parts of this assignment, is you're going to have to get in there. This is why on this class, I put the advisories that you should have the perspective class and you should have the digital paint class first before you take this class, because these are little things. Now I just put that line in there. See, I was way off. So I didn't match up my ruler correctly. So I match up my ruler now to this angle here. And then I can get that wall structure right back there going in the right direction. So I just sort of make all these blocks. And then as I'm developing them, I sort of figure out what part is wall, what part goes right to left. You know, this looks like the structure could end here and come down. And then this looks like it would probably go back this way, coming down like this. Photoshop's being buggy because of the recorder too. So I have a light side, dark side of there. I might have a wall that goes there. So this is it. I just keep building it. And the cool thing about doing this is you could already see the structural facades in there, right? Then I could zoom into this, and then I can even add more detail. So I could come in here and I could start saying, okay, maybe this come down, it hits in here, but then maybe there's another little side part that's there. And then maybe on this wall here, there's another part that angles down a little bit and extrudes out a little bit more, drops behind there. That might come up like this. There might be some little windows on that. And I just keep constructing this guy and adding these little details and elements and really figuring out, because then when I go to render, all my answers are there for me. I understand the light side, the dark side. I can figure out how everything's coming together, you know, and what was elevated, what sides are where, you know. And then if I look at my drawing and there's something on there that I don't like, I just spend another 5 minutes. I go back and redo it, you know. And even down to here, I might realize, hey, I want to add another extension on there. I might have another extension pop out of there a little bit, you know, there. And now the structure is coming together where I really get a much better idea of how this piece would be working, right? Because I can now go over it in red and I can say highlight, highlight, highlight side, highlight, highlight, you know, highlight, highlight. This all would be lit. This is a front facing, but then I need to figure out a little bit more detail back in here. So I might come in here and then, you know, maybe there's another front facade back behind in there. Maybe this separates as well and has a little front facade. So I know where the shadow sides are. And yeah. And then if you don't like it, start over and do your reference again. And then this right there gives me all of those answers. Because now when I zoom out of it, I can really get a good feel of exactly where all my highlights are going to be. You know, I know, oops, hold on, I hit crop. Why did I hit crop? I meant to hit brush. Yeah, and it's really quite wonderful to do this because I actually learned this once in a painting class that I had in a traditional paint class with oils, about learning and mapping out, spending the time to map out and figure where all my highlights are going to be hitting, because then it's going to be making my piece that much more successful, you know. And I started doing this thing once in class where if I drew on top of it in red, I found out that that was a better explanation for the students to see where all the highlights would be, you know. And what are the
I'm
front
kind of
face?
embarrassed. I forgot to check for the vanishing point for that bridge.
Yeah, well, that's okay. That's
As I was
why
writing.
I'm glad we got to cover it, because it's just a light alteration, right? Then after this is matched up, then you could come in here and you could adjust that curve of it just a teeny bit, like in there, and then it'll be fine. Okay, but what's cool is now you could see where your highlights would be in here, right? And you could see how all, especially if the light's coming down a little bit, sort of like this or whatever. Wait, no, yeah, because that was shadow side. You had light side, dark side. So now this would make sense where you might have the shadow. This would be shadow side, and that would cast over. But then this would be highlight. You know, you'd probably have highlight there. You'd have a highlight there, highlight more on that front too. A little bit of highlights on some of these sides there. And now you see the whole piece will come together, and that is the beauty of it, is getting those highlights on there will make the whole castle feel realistic. And that's the difference between a castle being realistic and being sloppy, is that if it's sloppy, we can't see where the changes of the facades are. There's always, you know, a front side face, you know, you have a front, you have a side, you have a top. It's just like always go back to like digital painting basics, you know, every Photoshop class, the first grade assignment you should have is painting cubes of different textures, because then it teaches you how to use a brush, and then you learn like, hey, if light's coming this way, that's read number 1, number 2, number 3. So 1's the brightest, 2 is second, and then 3rd would be the shadow side. And if you apply that into everything you're doing there, you're going to be good. In fact, you could even come in, I could make this an assignment, but I wouldn't want to be mean. If you were to come in and start thinking about all these other grids that you have here, you know, if you start thinking about, hey, that's a rock side, you know, that's rock, where's the shadows going to be, what's the contour of this going to feel like? Yeah, we can use textures to guide us, but sometimes when you indicate that stuff yourself, then it only takes a couple minutes and you just figure it out, like, hey, these are all my hot spots. And then they're going to fade right here as they wrap around that corner, because it's getting into shadow territory, right? And that's what'll make your piece look very realistic. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't know what, like, I think it was just like the lack of confidence, but the bridge, the curve there on the second, I want to call it the second half. I was like, okay, this just doesn't look right. I'm gonna get enough to where I can ask the question, but
yeah,
thank you.
my pleasure. My pleasure. I'm glad we had a chance to talk about this, because it's relative to everybody else in the class. This is usually, once we hit the rough detail phase, this is what happens when we get to this level, is people are like, my castle's falling apart. And then I got to go back and go, okay, you created it in shape. Now you need to figure out the structure of the castle so you know how to light it correctly. Okay. And that's it's funny. I'm having this discussion because in this class, we're going more into what I call working with silhouette and shape. And then in my other class, Dart 119, we're focusing on linear. So linear does apply to this for us to really understand the shadows, the bridge, and make sure all the perspective's correct. So once you get all that in there and get that blocked in, you can even use some of that for what's up in here too. And then you'll figure out some of your highlights and stuff. And the more you do that, if you do it a couple times, you won't have to do it in red anymore, because you'll see it in your brain. You'll know. And then what's cool is you do it with the selection tool. You just take the selection tool and you select these little areas for highlights, and then you come in and paint it and blend it in. That's it. Okay. All right. Good job, Rachel. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. My pleasure. Did you want to take a picture of that? I'll zoom in.
Oh, sure.
That way you have a screen grab of it, okay?
And got it. Thank you.
All right, excellent. All right, next over here. All right, Josh.
Hey, Phil.
Okay. The foreground looks really good. Josh, some of this, you see some of this area back in here, how that blends in a little?
Yeah.
I might lighten some of that down a little bit. It actually looks like it's getting a little teeny bit darker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Lighten it down just a little bit and see if that helps pop out. The castle looks really good. It reads well. So this is a night shot, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to have all the lights on. What is this little
Right.
light here? The brightest one there.
I was making it like the entrance.
Okay. That could totally work. Like if that was like a guard building or something, what I would do is define a little bit. Is this like an arch bridge in here? You know?
Yeah.
I would define a little bit of what that structure is. And then what I would probably do, which I think looks really cool, is once you get that bridge in there, I would recommend if this comes down here, you have this brightest light at the entryway to the city.
Yeah. Okay.
Because now it feels like it's on the side of the bridge. If it feels like it's at the entryway to the city, then the inside of the city is filled with light. There's light scaling up the walls, and it gives it a nice, good feel and read. And then the next thing that I would do is I would come in here and I would stamp in, maybe like, you have like a horse in here and you have a soldier up here, and maybe there's a couple other guys like they're walking and they're coming back into the city, and that'll give it a little bit of the narrative too. All right.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Just definitely, I could tell by looking at it, keep these values lighter.
Mhm.
They're getting a little bit more. If I grab that color picker and look at them, I could tell they're sort of similar to, they're getting a little bit, try to just get it a little bit lighter instead of in that little quadrant right there. They're somewhat similar to this color right here. And I think you want to be over here getting a little bit in the lighter area. All right. Try that out and see how it goes. Okay, good job.
Sounds
Really
good.
nice job. The foreground looks awesome, dude. Sketch the people in there and then get that other information in there. I think it'll all come together. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Good job. All right. Next. Let's see what we got here. Naomi.
That's me.
So that's more like how would you describe that bridge that goes across? Is that a walkway?
It's like one of those rope bridges, the wooden
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Gotcha. And then it goes across to there. Okay. What I would do, I think that's good. I think you're at a good block. And remember, we had details sort of today. So we need to get in there, start getting
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
detail in there. I think you're in a good place. You have lots of negative space in the back there. I think you're in a really great place to be able to come in here and have, maybe another mountain or another something behind there that can go lighter in atmospheric perspective. Instead, right now you're at 1, 2, and oops, that didn't even come up. You're at 1. Hold on, let me make my brush bigger. You're at 1, 2, and 3. If you do a couple more transitions and make it get a little bit lighter back in here, and then maybe in the back, there's another structure that drops back there like that. That'll help that transition. Just keep them lighter than the value of the castle right there. And I think that'll really develop quite nicely. Okay. Yeah, that could work. This could be this like super giant bridge. Eventually you want to come in here and really get that line nailed down, like how it hooks up and then where it mounts to there, and tighten it up just a little bit. And then you're ready to add detail in there. Okay.
All right. Sounds
Right.
good.
Good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Eric. What are your thoughts, dude?
I'm pretty happy with it. There's a piece like that I would go in and just add more detail to, but I don't know. I'm pretty happy with it. What do you think?
I would just lighten down the highlights of yellowish orange in there. I think they could be dulled down a little bit and spread out a little bit more.
Okay.
So what I mean
Like
by
spread out,
dulled
like they're
down,
not all pulled in one place.
I don't think I saved the version. Hold on, let me see if I saved the version I had. Because I remember we were working on it together, right?
And I saved all the lighting on separate layers too, so I can change the saturation and opacity and dark.
I thought I saved it real quick. Let me double check.
Personal opinion, I think you should keep the lighting towards the background. I feel like the lighting's not working as well in the foreground.
Okay, like push it to the back more.
Yeah, and have that be like because the supposed to be our focal point, and that's supposed to be our center of interest. So if you keep the warm lighting there, then it'll make sure the eyes are drawn there.
Sorry, guys, give me 1 minute. I'm trying to find, I saved that file. Remember, I was working on it with you. So that I can't find it right now. My comment is that I like the lights, but it needs to be softened a little bit. It needs to blend in and be a little bit softer.
Okay.
And remember, it's not just the light hitting parts of there. Part of your light is going to have an effect on the whole mountain range here, you know. It's hold on, let me grab my other brush. You're going to have this fade in. I remember the version that I did, it was a little softer. I think you might have got a little harder with it, you know, but I would,
Yeah.
because it feels a lot harder. But see, you're going to have, when I said lighten down the intensity of it, but then have it spread a little bit more. This is what I mean about having it spread a little bit more. See, it's going to be it's going to be sort of wrapping over the mountains, almost like it's a whole layer effect, sort of like that.
Okay, so not as isolated.
Yeah, exactly. And then you could come in and blend in some little cools maybe for that area. But then up here, it's really it needs to be a lot softer. It's getting a little bit harder. So I would push some of this down a
I think
little
it would
bit.
help if we put like a Gaussian blur on it.
Yeah, or if it's on a separate layer, I think if it just I think it's already, look at how much better it's working if I push it down a little.
Yeah, that's true, huh?
It just becomes a little softer. And I think the highlights were getting just a little, maybe too intense. Remember, this area here was meant to feel like it was in a little bit of shadow.
I don't know if it's possible, but if like Eric could put his Photoshop document for you so you can mess with the light layers and not have to just draw over it, that might help.
That's a good idea if you have it. Now I kicked myself. I thought I saved that file, dude, that we were working on, and now I don't know where it is. I'm looking on my desktop and I don't see it anywhere. PSDs. Oh, aha, I found it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I did find it. So look here. Let me go back. Give me 1 second. Let me pull up. Hold on. There's yours. Where's the other version? Okay, hold on. Let me save this. So we can look at I want you to look at some of the variants here. And let me save this as desktop. And I'll call that Eric 2. Save. Okay, good. And let's go. Okay. And then I could come back and grab your work in here, and we can look at the differences. I knew I saved it somewhere. Okay, so here, actually, I think I committed to that layer. I did. I blended it in. Let me duplicate that layer. It was supposed to be a little bit brighter, but then a little bit dulled down a little bit. So what I was suggesting in here is that you get the feel of the light, but it's softer and it spreads a little bit around. And I feel like, and I didn't do the castle there. I feel like you did it, but then you came in and then you're like, hold on, where's your piece? Let me get the 3 here. That's the one I was drawing on. No, that's the one I was on, right? Yeah. Hold on, let me find the 3. Maybe
Yeah,
it
that's the one.
was over. Okay, so here's your original. I think the highlights are too bright and they're really strong and they need to be faded in a little bit. So on this one, I faded in a little bit, but I didn't do some of the highlights in there. I didn't do the castle. But see how this feeling sort of, it spreads across the whole piece a little bit. And then I was keeping this in shadow a little bit, you know? So I like what you did. I would just
Yeah,
dull
especially
it.
as you go further in the environment. Yeah.
Yeah, I would dull it down a little bit, especially what's happening is this foreground is competing against what's in the background there. So what I did here is I just tried to just flatten it down a little bit. You know, I'm trying to push some of these highlights down a little bit so they're not as bright, but it still spreads in there. And then I'm also trying to limit the light in here a little bit so it's not as bright. So that way our focal point, you can have light peeking through little pockets in here, you know, coming through, that's fine. But to me, this is unifying a little bit better than I felt like here it was too intense. You see the difference? You know, it's really, really bright and hot right there,
Yeah, totally.
you know? So, and then that's the one we were sort of doing earlier, which I was thinking more that this is a spread of light and highlights and sort of coming in here, and it's spreading over the mountain where you got a warm against the cool, and then it's sort of the lights coming through these little corners here, and then by keeping this in shadow, you can hit a couple little edges here on there, but keep them sort of soft because this should be closer to what's getting hit by your light source is what's this whole area up here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's closer to the light. This is
Yeah, I guess the lights in the
way-
foreground wouldn't be that sharp anyway, since there's nothing that close to causing a shadow.
Exactly. Took the words out. Even if you blend it a little bit in there, that'd be fine. But then keep it soft. So when you look at that, and then I was,
Okay.
you know, look at that and see the difference immediately. It's just like, let me minimize that. So there it's
Yeah,
a
that's
little
much better.
softer. And here it's like pa-chang, and there it's like painted on. You know what I mean? Super. So just thin it down a little bit and allow it to spread a little bit more. Get it a
Yeah.
little bit softer in there. And I think that'll give you the look that you're sort of going for. All right. Cool.
Okay.
Hopefully that helps
Yeah, I
you
like
out,
that.
dude. Because look at the difference. I mean, the soft, there are like the highlights still up there and the little
Cool, yeah,
softer
definitely.
read. But then that's just like, you know, it's like you drop the bucket of paint on it. It's like super bright, you know, like, you know, so just tone
Yeah.
it down a little
I
bit.
think I'll keep some of the highlights on the mountain and the castle in the background, but then just put some soft over it.
Okay. Cool, dude.
Okay, cool.
All right. Look forward to seeing what you have. Thank you. All right. And let me see. Guy. All right. Next over here, we got River. How you doing, River?
Hi. I'm doing
Right.
all right.
I think this is looking good. What's your you have some good details and information in there. Is your light coming from the left?
Yeah, like the front left. We I showed the stitches last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's coming from the left side.
Okay. Yeah, so if it's gonna come from the left, let me switch to like a red real quick. So I think it's good. It's but you are gonna have some little highlights in there, right? You see them?
Yeah, in the castle I was trying to think about how to express it better. So for now it's just a bit abstract.
Well, and that's okay. It's so what I would do is like what I did earlier to Rachel's. Did you see that where I was constructing, getting the shapes out of it?
Mm-hmm.
Construct and get the shapes out because yeah, your light totally does feel like it is coming in that direction. So we need to get in there and just really figure out, you know, I identify your horizon line. It looks to me like it's probably somewhere about there in the piece. about there, right? Because you're going to have a vanishing point off the page here, and this has like a wall sort of coming down in that direction. So if, let's say I'm about there, then I would figure out, you know, like what is, you know, does that wall come down, drop around and go like this? So you understand how it's constructed. You know, how does that wall come down and construct as well, you know? And then you can come back, pick your other VP back on the other side, and then you can start figuring out. So if that comes in there, maybe there's like a, you know, a facade wall that comes here, maybe then that then drops. Then maybe there's, you know, a part, like a front part to the castle that's in there. And then maybe this connects up. Maybe that's another front part that's connected. Then you have the little, you know, maybe that comes down, maybe this pops out again here, and then maybe that recedes back again. So really nail down part of that perspective, get that construction in there so you could figure out where the lights would be hitting, okay?
Mhm.
And then that'll allow you to move from that abstract to get the details in there, because this is really, it's really looking very nice. And if we get in here and get these little angles and these little details all sort of mapped in there, it's also going to give you a really good feel and read to sort of what's happening in general with the whole entire structure. And then once you get that in there, it'll give you a much better idea on how this is, because this is going to cast. So you get to use this to your advantage, where if light's coming from there, you're literally going to have almost all of this here and there is all going to be lit up with highlights on it, you know, right in there. Now, that's all going to be lit. Then you're going to have this really cool shadow, and that shadow is going to come over here and tumble down and then go down part of that hill like that. And depending on the angle of your light and where it's coming from, you know, this part of this is also going to do that. That's going to drop and shadow off the hill a little bit. It's going to connect to there. Part of that castle is going to wrap up in here, and you're going to have some more little points coming off there, wrapping up over. And then that's to your advantage, because now you're going to get to have, let me see if I can draw this a little bit darker. You're going to have a shadow side in here. It's all these little shadows holding this castle together, and that wall and part of this here, and that will be like shadow, right? Then you get to have this, oops, how did I just do that? Go back. Okay, go back to brush. Then you get to have these highlights here, and part of these highlights can then pop against these shadows here. So if this is all shadow up in here, that'll really allow the blend of the piece to come together nicely, having these little, in fact, I might even then come back and bring your highlight side back over a little bit more, even like this, because that way all this shadow side here ends up reading very well, you know?
Mhm.
Okay, look at that. That's going to be very cool when you see all that put together and all the shadows in there and how that casts. Look, that immediately makes that a focal point too, which is very nice, having that mountain staged around there. And then what I would do when you're done with that is then figure out, introduce your characters in that pathway. You know, is there a broken up road that's here? And do we have, you know, a guy? I don't know why, for some reason, I just felt like if there was a horse, like right in here, and that horse, and you have a soldier on it, and you could just have a flag, like literally pointing, literally like right up there that he's holding. You know what I mean? So if you have a soldier that's here, you have a couple others that are walking down here, and then as they're going along this pathway, maybe even over here, you have another guy on a horse too, with a couple other soldiers there. You really introduce a nice narrative that takes you to the entryway to that castle. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. Looks good. Yeah, just get in there and start figuring out. And like I said, this is common. Usually right at this detail pass, everyone hits the castle and they're like, what do I do? They get locked up. And I'm like, just plot your points, figure out your horizon line, and then construct it. And then you can do a couple different versions to construct it. I did this really fast, but you can sit and put 30 minutes into it and you'll have a really nice looking castle, especially if you're looking at reference. You'll be able to develop it quite nicely. Okay, cool. Good job, River. Looks great.
Thank you.
And by the way, all this detail up in here, it's looking really fun. It's very believable, looks really great, has a nice texture. You're also keeping that atmospheric perspective in there. It's working quite nicely. Okay.
Nice. Thank you.
All right, good work. All right, let's take a look at what we have next year. We have, it just says Dart Monotundra. Whose is this one? Elizabeth. Okay. Elizabeth, I would recommend still on that castle. There's some, so similar to like what I was talking about today. There's some perspective problems that are happening there that you need to really clarify and lock down. And then what I would do is I would construct how the castle would be, and then I would break it apart, if that makes sense. Okay. Let me show you some of the perspective problems you got to figure out there. You got to get these nailed down, or else it's going to make the drawing look a little bit off, and it's going to throw it a little bit out of context. So here's an example. You have an arch here that you can see underneath. Being able to see underneath that arch means that your horizon line is going to be either there or somewhere down about, probably like about there, I'd say. Okay, we can see underneath that arch. If we could see underneath that arch, this line is not going to be going like that, because that's going to a horizon line that would be up here. Okay, so if your horizon line is down here and we can see underneath that arch, then you're going to be able to see underneath that building. It's going to be going like this. Okay, your building is going to be sitting, it's sitting above that horizon line. So you have to get in there and really figure out how to construct that castle and make it work. This is, I know this is a shape that's in there, and that is a castle shape that's there, but at the same context, what was like, you know, was there a wall that was here first, and did that wall, was it like, you know, from war, was it cracked and broke down? Was there an inside to it? Was there maybe another wall that overlapped that's been broke down over time? If your horizon line's down here and we're looking under that arch, then your ellipse angles are going to be going the opposite way. They're going to be going like this, because we're going to be looking underneath that shape. So you have some perspective things you got to get really nailed down in here. You need to get in there and draw and sort of construct and make that feel like it's real. And I would get in there and get some of that. I'd also watch these large, what are these, like icicles in here, or snow, or what's the idea there?
Crystals or icebergs.
Okay. If there, are they something, so you got to think about this. Are they something that came from the ground like an earthquake, or are they something because the castle's been destroyed, the snow's been blowing, and they're building up around the castle?
I was thinking like earthquake.
Okay. If that's the case, you would have an original castle that's there that's sort of fallen down. We would see more of the ruins of that castle around. So I'm going to be honest with you. You're picking a subject matter that's a lot more harder and complicated to pull off, because the way to pull that off properly, to have it demolished and fallen apart, is you have to literally build it first, then figure out where the chunks of it would fall down and build. I've had to do that a lot, because a lot of times when we do drawings, we have to do environment drawings or paintings that show a before and after. So I might have to like show the exterior to, like one time in Batman, I had to draw Bruce Wayne's house on the hill, and then it was attacked by Joker, and I had to show it demolished and what it looked like after it got bombed. Okay, you're going to have to do that. So you need to go in here and structure this, because you then, once you break it apart, then you could come in here and add some other elements, or show that there was an earthquake, or maybe there is, like, you know, these these elements are up here, but there's a large crack, like a crevasse inside the ground. It shows that it's been split apart. But before we even get there, you need to have these vanishing points set up, because this arch right here, that's in 1 point. But then the rest of your building is like in 2 point. But then the perspectives are offset. So you need, I would recommend, what I would do is I would come in here on a new layer like this, and I would just start with, I would say, hey, here's my horizon line. I would map it out all the way, find your VPs. Then I would come in here and I'd go, okay, here's castle wall, like protective wall number 1. Number 1's going to come in here. It's going to go across there. I might have these little corner elements in here. Maybe this was part of the entryway to castle wall number 1. Then after castle wall number 1 might be number 2. And then number 2 might be here. And then there might be some other little structures built up on this. And I would rough it in really quick, but then I would be checking this. I would just get the whole castle shape first in there and define the castle itself. Then I would come back in, and then I would do the overlap of the rocks and stuff. And then I would start to break it apart, because now it's going to have structure. It has structure that you could properly break apart and take to that next level. So if I just start to rough it in a little bit more and take part of what you have and come back here off of a vanishing point, I can figure out, maybe I do have this really cool arch in the front. Maybe there's this real beautiful, like looking window shape that's in here. Maybe there's this large sort of castle structure in the back here on the side. Maybe this wall continues this way. Maybe there's this other secondary wall comes over here. Maybe it drops a little. Maybe it raises up, goes that way. And then, usually some castles are built off of symmetry. It's up to you if you want to continue that. But to really pull this off, to have it in ruins, you're going to have to construct it first. Look at your reference. Make sure that everything is feeling really correct in terms of its shape and perspective and detail. And then I would come back into it and then start destroying it. And then, because that's the easy part, I can come in here and go, hey, this wall has been fallen down. And if that's down, look at that negative chunk out of there. So I know that negative chunk, I'm going to have chunks of stone here, lying around here, all on the ground. Then I'm going to see through the wall. So now if that wall is damaged like that, I'm going to be able to see part of, what was back behind that wall. Was there another structure back here, another wall that had a castle? Was there a walkway on that wall? Did the other wall come back here? Was there, maybe there's a lot of castles had guard stations positioned outside in different segments. So maybe there's a guard station here. And I like this arch idea that you have in there. Maybe that arch came up, but where did it go? Did it go back into the direction, and did it hold? Was it a flying buttress support, that held part of the castle together? So once you start getting all this carved in there, I would figure out the construction of the castle, and then I would break it down. Because what's happening now is it's sort of feeling like it's hodgepodged a little bit. You know what I mean? Because the perspectives aren't matching up. And those perspectives really need to match up for it to be broken apart. So if that's too complex and you can't figure it out, simplify it, go back, and then just put a brand new castle. And maybe there's these little worker bee mechs out there collecting crystals for something. That could be part of the narrative's fine. We just need to make sure that this makes sense and it's constructed to make sense. Okay?
Can I just hop in here real quick just to give
Yeah.
really like the use of icicles in the middle of that castle, because it had such a high contrast that it really pops out as a foreground, and it also does a really good job of, because the way I'm interpreting this, and this is just me having fun with it, I really like this as a narrative piece because it gives me like two ways of it. I really like what Phil was saying, like these bots are going in and taking the ice. Or the other way I interpreted it was that this was the site of a battle and no longer working. mechs that are just frozen in place, and we're kind of getting a snapshot of like a lost frozen time. I think this piece works really well as a narrative piece. While it's a very daring piece you've done, I think like if you can to keep going forward with it, because I think you have something really cool going on here.
Yeah, it's a great idea. There's nothing wrong with the idea, but there has to be this, you have to sort of put it together. It's like a Lego, you know, you have to get that Lego put together and understand where all the walls are to the castle. And then once you get all this stuff locked in and it starts to make sense and you understand how the castle was built and put together, then you can come back and tear it down where it makes sense because you understand what part of the construction was and what was where. I mean, the castles have lots of interior walls and details and shapes and windows, and you have to get some of that locked in to the piece correctly if you're going to go for that narrative. That is going to have to, you know, really sort of guide and fit part of the piece. So if that was my castle right there, let's say, and that was the castle brand new, you know, and then I could properly come in here and I could figure out where I can put an icicle. Like I might be able to come in here now and go, hey, we're gonna have a large icicle coming in through here, which means this is going to be broken in half, that wall, just like that one was down there. And then maybe part of that structure is faded off. So if I look at this and there was a war, gosh darn it, I ended up drawing on the wrong layer. Then I could break some of this off. So I start thinking of it as positive and negative spaces. I can get rid of that negative space there. And then this guy in here is going to be all white, you know, right in there. But then, and then I want to break apart the front here, right? I could do the same thing. I can get the other stones in here and get what I want. But then, you know, if this breaks apart and falls apart and this, let's say there's a huge like gap in the middle of this, then I know that I can take all of this out and, you know, maybe there's a giant icicle that's popping through some of that. And part of that whole front gate has been demolished. And then, you know, that's a negative space and there's rock and castle chunks all falling around all over on the outside here. So by figuring out the construction of it, it's going to make, number one, the perspective all adheres now because I'm looking, I know where my horizon line is. I'm looking up at my shapes and I can figure them out. Then as I start to break all these down, that's, to me, that's the cool part. That's like, one of my favorite type of pieces to do is always, I love those post-apocalyptic pieces where everything's demolished. And I remember once I was taking a class at Concept Design Academy with James Hughes, he's a designer for film and does a lot of visual development for film. And I remember he made a comment once. He goes, in order to have a post-apocalyptic piece, first you got to paint it as if the city was fine. Then you got to go into it and break apart the windows and the buildings and show the glass and stuff all over because you're taking away from the structure. So you're going to have cracks in that structure. You're going to have parts of that building that have faded off. And remember, we're looking underneath that. I might be able to see underneath that negative shape there because I'm looking underneath. It's a shape. You know, if there's a giant crack in there, I can see underneath that floor, and I might even see a layer that might have been like a room or something was in there. You know, if this wall is cracked in half, I'm going to be able to see the thickness of part of that wall. Then you can come back in here and you can get, you know, put a big icicle in there that's breaking it apart. But now the structure is retaining itself, you know. And I think another thing that's really cool that you could do is, let me show you this really quick on YouTube. 1 second here. Come on, oh, my cursor keeps getting stuck. Let me create a new window. I think this might help you quite a bit. If you go to YouTube and type in castle demolition. Hold on a minute. Castle. Oh, that's cool. There's some good reference there of them tearing apart a castle. Type in castle demolition Maya script. is we have to do the same thing that would happen like this.
That face that is usually covered by her phone.
My ad blocker ain't working, Eric.
That face wouldn't.
That's right. So,
Did you install it?
you know, I did on Google Chrome though. So the reason I'm showing you this is that if you have like, it gives you an idea of how pieces break apart. So there's some videos where guys, they do this in the film industry. So like when a wall gets hit like this, you don't realize how many pieces make up that wall. And come on, show it. There it is. It's coming here in a minute. Why is it not playing? I'll go piece by piece, and it doesn't appear to be playing that wall there. And then you can see.
But if I play the theme,
there.
Continue.
So you could see all the pieces and how it would fall apart. And if you look under this, there's some really cool examples of castles and buildings that are falling apart and getting disintegrated. Because then you realize all the chunks and the elements. I think this guy did have it in here. He has a castle in the back here. Okay, I'm not seeing it now. That's weird. He put up there that he had the castle up there. Maybe he just did it for, but they call it, it's also called a shatter script or a break script. I found, it's not up there anymore, but I found a really, really cool one from an attack sequence done once in Game of Thrones. It was up here, and they showed like the whole building, the castle getting hit with metal balls and parts of it crumbling and falling down. There was also one from Lord of the Rings that was done that showed part of a castle coming apart. So I would gather a little bit more reference and then get all of that to come together. And I think that'll, because this is a great idea, but we want to make it work. We want the perspective to work and make the construction make sense. Okay, cool. Hope that helps you out.
Thank you.
All right, my pleasure. All right, Mr. Connor. Okay, so what you need to do here, buddy, it's looking good. The atmosphere is working just fine. What was due today was sort of the detail pass, was getting that texture in there. So let me point out a couple of things. Number one, this soldier that you have here, he's at a side view. If you can, try to find a brush where we have him like this with the horse, and the horse would be in like a perspective view with the soldier on top of him, like maybe here, and he'd be holding that banner. That's going to be 10 times more appealing to the viewer as if we see him like that. Okay. All right. Now, outside of that, he would be darker. He would be, hold on, let me take the lock off. Let me create another layer here. So what I would do is you would have, I would show some type of, like I would continue this foreground element you have here. It's really nice. I bring it this way a little bit more like that. That way you can have the guy on the horse be here, standing here, and we could see him. It would make sense to see him like he's basically walking down this path, and he could even have soldiers with him like they're going that way. Then what you did with your path here, as you wind your path around and it goes, you know, and it breaks apart and gets thicker, it might overlap that. It might come around that hill. Then we might see it come around this way like that. That way we could really identify the path and it will fit the narrative. Okay. So the next thing for you to do, what was due today, is you need to get in here and get some texture in there, the thick and the thin of the rocks and the you know, pointing out and the texture of the countryside. Right now, all your texture looks like a light haze of clouds on it. So we really want to get that texture sort of built in there. If you do that, and then you get this road, maybe the road just sort of ends there. Then we see it drop behind here. You could even have a couple like little pillars with little flags on it here that'll help anchor that down and show the direction of the soldiers. So if you do this in here, and then you start to blend in some of your detail in here, like I did in that demo. I did the photo blend, I did the stamp tool, I painted some of it in myself. Then once you get that done, then you want to come in here and just figure out linearly, like is there an entryway to that castle? How does that work in perspective? You know, your horizon line was going to be probably about there, because this is a lightly rounded line, and then up here these angles, we're looking underneath these. So when we get up here, maybe part of your walls are like this, and then they start to wrap around and they come around like that. So you want to go in there and be able to define some of these little details on the castle and figure out how they're working and how they're connecting in there, just like I was sort of doing earlier. Okay. So once you draw on that and figure out that perspective, that's going to give you a better idea. Then you have an inner wall that's like right in here. You have this guy that's going up. You have an arch there with another wall on it. This structure comes down. So we need to figure out, is there, you know, another wall that comes up, and is there a little corner there? Is there something here? Is this part of the castle go back in perspective? We need to figure out where the left facades, the right facades, and this will really help you start to put, because your next phase is the detail and the light. So by understanding the facades on this castle and what we're looking under and at, that's going to help you really get in there and be able to light it and build it correctly and understand some of the shapes that keep the whole thing together. Okay, buddy?
Yeah, okay.
There. So
I
once
get
you
it now.
get that in there, see, now I can start seeing, you know, light side and dark side, and then I can start putting detail on there, and it gives me a much better idea. I sort of like this idea of maybe the castle, this, you know, maybe this little bridge here between sort of connects these pathways, you know. Okay, and then get some detail on there. Look at that. It's already changing the piece quite a bit, because now we're seeing a little bit of form and structure in there, and it's making sense. We see a left side and a right side and a dark side, and that's really going to make part of this whole piece come together, especially when you have an archway. We can see inside the archway. We can see that there's usually buildings and some other elements out there. There's rocks against usually lots of the castle walls to protect, like from the rain and from soldiers putting up elements trying to scale the walls. So they always tend to have large rocks and stuff around there. So if you do that, look at already, there's quite a bit of more information happening there that makes this feel a lot more interesting. And the same thing here, like I did earlier, wrap this with some contour line, figure out, you know, are there big rocks in here? Are there, you know, patterns of clumps of information? You know, how does this hillside go downward? You know, how does it drop? Get some contour line in there that's going to help you understand how this whole thing sort of comes together. Okay, that way, when you go to paint it, it'll be a little bit easier to understand what is happening to, like, some of the roadway and the detail. You know, you can have rocks here on the side. Part of this can break into little patterns. So as you go in there and start painting it, sometimes for me, I still have to do a little bit of a line drawing on top of it to figure out what is left and right and how the pathways are working and how the soldiers are getting there, you know. So I would go into some of that and start to break it down a little bit like that. Okay.
Okay.
Now that we have this done, you can say, okay, light's coming this way. So that's going to be shadow, 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 shadow. This will all be shadow. That'll be shadow, shadow. That will all be shadow there. That will part be shadow there in the back. Some of that'll be shadow. And now you can really figure out where the shadow side of the castle is going to be. And then if light's coming that way, then part of that shadow is going to cast over and down that mountain range, and all that will be in shadow too. Okay, and then it'll give you a better understanding of how this sort of comes together. We'll have some shadows here, 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 and then that'll allow you to really get in there and start rendering out and figuring out how it works. Okay? Cool.
Okay.
Any questions?
No,
Okay, cool. Thank you, Connor. All right, good job.
you're welcome.
All right, next. looks good, Chris. It's coming together nicely. I think you're at that next level where I don't know if I put the footprints in.
No footprints?
Yeah, I take them out. The reason why is that looks like footprints from only one person walking like in snow. You're going to have animals, troops, lots of people going through there. The footprints will all muddy up the ground. You won't even notice it. What really
But the
looks
wheel-
nice is I
but the
really
wheel-
like, I'm sorry?
All right. I was on the wheel tracks are okay, right? Just no footprints.
I didn't really read those as wheel tracks. I thought those were just like the edge of the trail. I think
no,
that might be getting too detailed. You might not see all of that. You're going to see the dirt broken up. You're going to have, hold on, let me draw on top of this. Take off the lock. Because you're going to, I mean, remember, this is dirt. You're going to have like chunks of rock here, you know, that breaks up where the dirt meets, where people have walked by. You're going to have gravel. The trail's going to have a contour line or two in it that breaks it up, you know. You're going to have trails are all rocky and grass, you know, it's dirt that's been milled over. So the grass is going to hit it. This is almost a little too perfect where it'd be just like one group of footprints. And you have this huge castle. Lots of people are going to be going back there and doing stuff. So I would come in here and get these rocks and just have, I mean, this is really good. You get nice rock formations back up in here where you get shadow sides and dark sides in there. And if you keep that up, that'll make sense. And then, because remember, the detail is going to diminish. As that detail starts to fade away, it's going to drop off quite a bit. You're not going to be able to see the footprints all clear back in there because you're talking a pretty good distance from there to there. Okay. So I would just, break down and have some of that rock that's in there, have the pathway, maybe it fades off a little bit. If you want to put, sometimes on the way to castles, they have these little cement posts, a whole like a little flag, sort of welcome people to come into the castle. It's a great little marker to put in the piece. Then you might, if you can imagine the road coming back up this way through here, up into the front, then the same thing, just break some of this down a little bit. You're going to have little details, little elements. You might have a rock edge and wall that you need to define around part of the castle itself here, like that. And you see all those linear lines start to help the piece quite a bit, right? They give it a little bit more depth in there. So, and then what I did earlier, same thing here, you're going to have to figure out where is your vanishing point in the city, because you're going to have to figure out, right now you have there, it could be a 1 point piece where you have your castle walls going this way. That's fine. But if that's the case, really identify and say, okay, here's my VP. So if that's my VP, then if you have a wall structure, back here in the castle that goes up and raises, it might stop at a point, and then that's going to recede back. That's going to recede back down to that vanishing point like that. So that might be part of one wall, and then you might have another wall that's coming back like up in here, so you're going to have to figure out part of that construction of that castle so you understand where to have the highlights and the darks, and and then look, remember, you're going to see underneath that entryway there. And then if that's there, you're going to have the structure of these round elements here. That's going to connect in the castle. That's because your horizon line is now right here. So you're going to have to figure out some of that construction. That's going to help you paint it and get that all locked in. Now we can see, we come inside here, there might be another wall in the back. There might be a little pathway or something there. We're going to be able to see inside there. So I would, having some of that linear detail is going to aid you as you keep going into part of your rendering and get it to come together. Okay?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. because it's a good piece. I mean, it's coming across really nicely, but another thing to remember, and this is what can throw you prospectively too, is that that's why I wouldn't do the footsteps. Your footsteps from here to here, when you get back down here, the scale has changed dramatically. Somebody here might be that tall. If you plot that VP and you go to there, and you come right here and bring that height over, someone there is now that big. Their footsteps are going to be a lot tinier. So they're not going to be, you're not going to have the footsteps be at like equal space. They're not going to be that far apart from each other when they're way back there. The detail of the footsteps are going to fade off completely. So I would just ditch the footsteps. You can have a couple in here and blend it in with some other ideas. But then remember, think about the ground and the rock and all this element that comes in together. Get some cool textures faded in there, you know? I like the idea of like these arrows sticking out of the ground, like there's already been war and maybe there's an old helmet and, you know, other little stuff in there. But fill that up, get that detail in there and that texture. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
And most importantly will be really for you will be plotting that vanishing point, knowing that if that's your vanishing point, you're going to be able to see underneath this. You're going to be able to see under these. You're going to be able to see under these here, right? Because everything is in relationship to that horizon line right there. So you're going to have to do a little bit of a line drawing of that castle like I did on other people's today. Get that figured out so you could go in there and start rendering it appropriately. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right, good job, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Who's is this guy here?
That will be mine.
All right, Brandy. Okay. What's this over here, Brandy? Is that like a structure or is that just mountains?
I was just gonna do the stairs.
It's what? I'm sorry?
Stairs.
Stairs. Okay. I might take them out, and this is why. On your piece, you have a horizon line that's probably about there, it looks like. Okay? Because I'm looking underneath this ellipse right here. So your horizon line has to be probably about there. And that would make sense. I'm looking under these ellipses as well. So if I'm looking under those ellipses in perspective, this would be out of whack. It'd be wonk. Because once we go above that horizon line, you're not going to be able to see on top of that stair. Okay, the other problem with those stairs, it's a good idea, but they would have to be shrunk down in scale. So you would need to, your scale here is being identified to be about that big. Okay, so if I came over, if that's your horizon line, and if I were to plot, let's say I plotted a vanishing point, because most of this is in one point. That one point was right there. I could take the height of that soldier and transfer them over. This is called transferring scale. So your soldier is that tall right there. Do you see that? So your stairs are ginormous. They're huge. And the perspective would be out. So to me, the stairs don't make it or break the piece. What looks cool is these soldiers coming across this old decrepit bridge coming back into the camp. Okay. So what I would do is I would come back in here and I would sort of figure out how that castle is working in perspective in relationship to the vanishing point and the horizon line being about right there. Okay. Which is pretty good. You're pretty accurate. This sits on top of it, so we wouldn't see underneath it. But I would recommend I'd look at some castle reference. Some of this looks really good. And then some of this here, the lines, I haven't seen that before on castles. So look at some castle reference, really get that identified. You're on the outside wall of a castle, okay? You're gonna have like walls that are going across are gonna be protective, fortified walls. There's gonna usually raise up and another wall or two around it. So I would really get that castle to make sense in terms of its design. And then if soldiers are entering this way, you want the front of your city, the entryway to the castle, to sort of be seen. So you would probably have something like this here where we can see the entryway, which means we would move our VP over there. If we move our VP over there, we can see an arch then and an entryway as these soldiers come into the city right here, right? But then we would have to come back up that vanishing point. We would then see the side of that building in perspective, like this. And then we would see part of the side of that wall. So I would come back into this and figure out what the perspective is. And then how does that, then maybe the wall continues this way and ends like that. Now you have a wall and an entryway to the castle that makes more sense. Then I would continue part of this wall. I love the icicles and the ice we built around it. So I would draw the wall first, then I would come in and add the icicles and the ice back on top. But some of this is going to be covered right now because you're not going to see that. You're going to have a wall that goes around part of that castle that's going to be like this. And then you can come back in here and you can put rocks and other little elements and ice and all those other goodies around it. But it needs to make sense. Then if you get into here and that goes up, you know, this is in one point, you might have another protective wall that's here, and that's going to converge back down to that vanishing point. Then you might have, you know, maybe there's a little corner detail, something in here. You have this detail, which is there, which is fine. But then you need to construct that castle out of one point perspective with the vanishing point being right there. So you could save some of the paint you've done, but I would come back in because look at how nice it is seeing the soldiers walk here. We can see this right here. We have the ability to see how they're entering into the castle. And we can see the front facade wall of the castle. Okay, so then you could go in here and you could start, you could design up the castle and get more walls and everything off of that vanishing point and get really cool other structures and details in here. You can get it really nice and high. You have plenty of room to go up and really build part of that structure of what that castle might be. Okay.
Yeah, that makes a lot. When I was doing it, I was like so lost because it was just like silhouettes, and I do prefer to draw the design first.
Yeah.
This makes sense.
Yeah, especially now, your whole narrative is right here. That's your narrative. Your narrative is these guys coming across this bridge, coming in, and we want to be able to see. In fact, what you could do is if that's right there, you can even have like the drawbridge down right in there. And then that really connects well to the stone you put there coming across. It would be really hard to see that drawbridge because we're just a little bit under the, so maybe we take out the drawbridge. Since we're so close to the horizon line, you could just continue this pathway of like this from here to here. So basically, I like these stones you put there. And then what I would do is I would just have the stones go from here and then come back this way to the front to there. Because now we can see, you can see how to get into the castle. That's pivotal. Not only can you now see, now if you have light coming this way, you have all these areas of little highlights and arches and details on the wall. You get to light up. Then you come back and overlap that with your cool icicles and the snow out in the front. But now you can figure out all these facades and these angles and where the highlights are going to be, what's going to be hidden. You can break down into more finer detail. You can have secondary shapes, tertiary shapes, and then it's all going to make sense. So and then ditch the stairs. Instead of the stairs, what you can do is just come in here and have some like rock shapes. You can even have a mountain shape that comes down in an angle. It's going to help point you back in with a couple of rocks that point you that way. That's all you need. And if you wanted to introduce more of a narrative, if you wanted that to be a trail, you would have to come in and show maybe the trail coming in and dropping and then coming down like this to the foreground. So it's a trail that goes up. But remember, after that stair goes up like this, stairs after the horizon line, they go up. We can't see the top of the stair anymore. So you could come back into this, show the bottom of the stair, but then once they go up, they're not. So that might make sense if you made those stairs a little smaller and then you bring the pathway there. Then what I would do is it would look like troops would take that stairway, right? But then they would come around and go down this bridge. But then what I would do is I would make this look like it's a cliff front and this drops off. So there's no way to get to that castle because you have to go along this pathway to get there. Okay, or if you don't do that, you can just ditch the trail idea, put rocks there, and maybe the entryway, maybe this is all ice with like crevasses and big gaping holes that go down, you know. Look at crevasses and snow caverns or, you know, and stuff, and that could all be a drop off, and this could all be like rocks you can't walk over. And then the army just might have to enter this way back to the castle, which would be fine. Okay, get some of that structure in there, and I think that's the part that was getting a little bit lost. Once you get that in there, it should be easy peasy to figure out. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. No worries. So you can save most of this piece, just part of the castle. Once you get that redrawn and use it, you might just repaint some of it to get the facades to match. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
My pleasure. All right, Miss Connie.
Hello.
Hi, Connie. Your perspective's looking pretty good on that castle there. It looks really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, perspective's looking good. Are you going to introduce like a soldier or anything walking up there, or is this? Give me the. Is it abandoned? Chained up for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think maybe I was thinking of introducing like some armed guard, some kind of like armed mech guard at like by the doorway. Because I was thinking for like the idea in my head was like fortified steel wall in the middle of the tundra. So I was thinking like they had something like important to protect. So I wanted to build I was thinking maybe more chains, something more that said like do not pass in here.
Sure. There's a couple ways you can do that. I like that idea of having maybe some soldiers out there in the front area right in here. Another thing that you could do is, I know you have a vertical composition, but if you were to widen your composition, you could continue the castle going this way a little bit. And then you could introduce more, you have more space on the left, introduce more of a narrative to it. You don't have
like more of the castle, just make it more bulky, or like
yeah.
like
let me draw for a minute. Let me expand out the canvas real quick, okay? Let me do that. Let me come over here. This is just an option, just another direction that you can go into, and it would give us a little bit more information. Here we go under image. Let's go to canvas size. So we're going to pop this out. Let's go to inches. And under the width, let's go to 16 that way. And that'll pop out. Actually, let's do more. Image, canvas size, and I just had a brain fart. So I'm gonna go, there you go. I'm gonna call out a little bit more that way. But I want to avoid the squares. Let me do a little bit more. Try to get it to stay on inches, but it never does. Come on. Ha. Okay, like that. So so this is what I was sort of thinking. Give me a minute. Let me block in a little bit more. Okay. I have some of that blended in back there, a little bit over there. Okay. What I was wondering is if this widens out a little bit. Okay. By so you have this chance to like continue the size of your castle, you know? So now if you, let me just catch a little bit more, get some more up there, some more sky like in here. You can really pronounce your castle more by pulling it out like that. And I'm just adding another one of these guys that you had here in the sort of like foreground. So if you widen it out, then you have all this extra space on the left here, where now you can have. So I really like this idea that you put in here. I think it's really nice. This looks like because that looks like a fallen flag, right, from somebody. So if we widen out your composition a little bit, you could get in here. You can have like another guy sort of up in here, you know. Oops. It could be part of it like a shield or something, be like a helmet. You could have maybe an old a sword, something else, some other little goodies that are in there. And then you can get some of those really cool, like nasty rock shapes, you know. This could really get some really cool, like pointy shapes coming in here. That could be rocks. Really make this feel very menacing looking, you know. There could be part of an overhang in here. You know, and then you get that mech in there protecting it, and then back in here you put a whole nother little mid layer of detail of other rocks and goodies back there, like blocking, and to have real angular, like death rocks, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That really prevents it. I really like you're getting this really nice atmospheric feel in here. You can get, you know, other mountains and like hills back there or whatever. And if we widen out the frame, you still keep your castle. Now you get to make your castle look a little bit bigger, but then you could really, then if you have light coming down here, or you could cheat it, is you could literally have like this open spot be right here, like getting hit by light, just like that. And then you could, I really like these highlights you put up there already. They look very nice, you know. And then you put your mech or your guards there. So maybe this comes forward. So maybe it looks like there's all these fallen soldiers and armies around there, and you have this like super mech or warrior that's protecting the front of the castle. You know what I mean?
Ooh, yeah, that sounds great.
Type of thing. So I thought by widening out your composition a little bit, it would really give you this feel of getting to have that in there. And then you still have like all of this other, I mean, you could have like an abandoned carriage or horse helmets, other stuff out there. I mean, I just did this really quick, but there's still quite a bit of really cool detail that you could get in there, you know. Let me just do this. We take these here. Oh, wrong layer fill. There, if I take those, and if we get these back here, sort of put them on top, let's transform them, kind of distort them a little bit. And if you continue some of that back in there, see how you get these like really cool, like jagged edges in there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. The way I had it before was too narrow with the focus, and it was feeling a bit like claustrophobic, and you couldn't get a lot of different elements into it.
Yeah, now look, we widened it. Now you got a whole platform for storytelling, you know? You could, you know, now I'm like tempted to come in here. I'm like, where are the mechs? You know, right? You have this like one, I thought I had mechs on here. Let me see if I do. Yeah, there we go. We have mechs right there. So you get this one badass guy, and he's just like, you know, put him. I have a fascination for mechs, man. I gotta look. You get one mech. So what I would do is this flag right here. You see my cursor?
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of in the middle. Now we can move it a little bit to the left, right? And then you could fit this really cool looking mech, just like standing like right here, just there protecting the front of the castle. And it doesn't have to be just one mech. It could be a mech with a couple soldiers. They could have, did you ever see the movie 300?
No.
Okay, I know. That's what most girls would say. Girls aren't going to watch really violent movies. It's just the way that program difference between men and women. Because now you gave me this idea that you could have. Hold on a minute. Can I paint one more minute?
Mm-hmm.
Let me take this. I really like what you had there. I just want to move it out. So let me take that that's there, and I want to move it back here. In fact, I might want to make it a little bit larger. Yeah, like that. Then what you could do is, hold on a minute. Let me brush this back in. Would you guys like to do exercises where we just do like speed paints during the day? Maybe when we finish this project, we can do some color speed paints. What do you guys think?
Do you mean all of us, like at the same time?
Yeah, like if I put something up and we spend 30 minutes trying to paint it.
You know, and then you can change. You can actually share screens. That could be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I give you guys permission. As long as Alex puts appropriate material on the monitor, we'd be fine.
You've mentioned some stuff he's into.
Yeah, right? Uh-oh. Hold on 1 minute. Let me get this blocked in there. There we go. Cool. Because see, what I was thinking is that if you really reinforce this, and then what you could do is you can make it. Let me see if I can pull this off real quick. If we take these rocks again, you can make it look like, oops, transform. Let's flip it horizontally. Let's bring it in here, put that layer up on the top. You can make it look like there's a protective barrier of rocks around the front, like they've prepared for battle. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
So this is what I was thinking. Let me lighten it just a little bit. Come on, Photoshop, lighten it. There we go. We'll erase this over part right here, and then basically come in here and just sort of hold on. Yeah, like that. So then you can make it look like they're, because you know, like they would do that in movies like Braveheart and fighting battle movies. You have like protective areas of rock and all this stuff. Now you could get in here and get this, like it's, see, now it's become a defensive position, and you still have room in here to, maybe you could even pull this out. Hold on, maybe convert merge these layers. Yeah, we can even pull it a little bit. What did I just do? You can pull it a little bit more that way too. Yeah, like that. Hold on, transform it. Let's distort it a little bit, bring them a little bit more angled out like that. There you go. Because now you could have, see, it's very angled and sort of defensive in there, right? And
Yeah.
you could get some really cool looking, you know, these angles are going to be cool because they're going to really convey compositionally like something nasty is going to happen in there. You know what I mean? It's very protective. And now you have this whole white area that could be hit with lights, and part of this could be back in shadow. So if I were to take, let me take fuzzy brush, take fuzzy brush and grab that shadow right there and sort of darken a little bit of this. Yeah, like that. That brings it into the foreground. Then you could have a couple mechs standing around the front guarding like the city, you know? So
Yeah.
by widening it, you just expanded everything. You gave yourself a whole platform to stage in. You could see more of the castle information, right? It's a whole win-win. And if you comprise all those layers together, and I didn't have all of them, but you can see the difference of where you were and how much more room now you have to stage, and these large angular rocks and these tall mountains in the back here make it feel like a very menacing, miserable place,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I love all the it adds. Oh man, I'm getting excited now.
Are you? No, that's good. I'm glad you're excited. As a teacher, sometimes if I draw or paint over people's stuff, like in character design today, I could have swore my students were like going, "Ooh, like, why is he destroying my stuff?" And I'm like, I'm not trying to destroy it. I'm just hoping to maybe give feedback to maybe make it look a teeny bit better and a little bit, interesting in terms of maybe the approach to it, So that's all. It's just thinking of some other way to push up. And what's really cool is you could do some really cool stuff. If you want to make this really haunting, you could, hold on, let me switch to red and I'll draw for a minute. You could, because I did this once in a piece that I did. You could put like skulls around here. You could make this look like it's a fallen graveyard, You could have, hold on a minute, let's get the drawing brush. So you could have like here, like some large animal, like cow skull in there, and you could have a human skull in the foreground,
Like to enhance that danger aspect of it, right?
Yeah. So now the viewer is going to see the skulls and the bones. You could have back here a couple bones coming out like this, of this, and then you'll see the shields and the helmets and the stuff and the old battle flags that people have carried, and then you have you could have these mechs here, and stuff, and I think that would really make it come together, quite nicely, right? And then if you wanted to, not that Phil showed you this, but I would be more than happy. Hold on. And I like the mech idea, but I also like, hold on a minute. I also had this idea. What if you had dragons flying around the castle?
Woo!
Right?
Finally!
I know Haley's been waiting for the dragon.
Perspective or environment design paid off. All those times in environment we were
All
told not
these
to draw
times,
dragons.
but
We'll
wait.
draw 69 dragons.
waited so long.
He finally, but only Connie gets to use them. But check it out.
Nope, you've unleashed the beast. There's dragons now in all of our pieces.
No, there's not.
Brianna, you know what to do. Haley, you know what to do. We unite. He can't strike us all down.
Hold on, let me get this. Connie, look it out. So here's my other idea, Connie. Instead of mechs, you have dragons and giant orgs standing outside protecting the city.
Ooh, yeah.
And I actually have, let me find it real quick here. One day I had nothing to do on a Friday night, and I made an org brush. I just don't know where the heck it is. Let me see if I can find it. I was goofing around. Maybe it was people in cart here. Yeah, here's the start of one. If you look, so what you could do, if you can't do this, I can help you with it. But I was goofing around. I thought I did more. Let me check here. No, those are the same ones. So I did this. Imagine this guy like this. And he'd probably be about, let me put him on separate layers so we can adjust his value. So imagine having like these battle orgs outside here like that, and you could have another one larger, maybe over, heck, you could have one maybe hiding here, like in the foreground like that,
Yeah.
And then you go in and put helmets on them and gear. And what's really cool is all you got to do is go to Sketchfab, and there's tons of free models. You can just delete and steal the silhouette and add stuff to it and then paint in these details. So now you have these protectors, these giant protectors outside, and hold on, let me deselect. Let's select him. He blends in a little bit too much. Let's go to levels. We'll darken him in just a teeny bit like that. You know, and then
Don't
you,
stop there, Connie. Put a dragon skull in the foreground. Show your
No.
strength.
what's cool is you get some, if you got some really good renders of these guys could be like the protectors of the city, you know, and they're these battle ready dudes. Hold on a minute. Let me get
Make them dragons.
do what?
Make them dragons.
You know what? I have, okay, Connie, I'm gonna find these brushes I have. I created these brushes that had some guys in there already. Actually, this one I might be able to steal. Yeah. Okay, hold on a minute. Let's go erase that guy because we already have his twin. And then brush, made another layer because the brush is going to transform in one angle. Yeah, like that. And you transform them, flip them the other way. And scale them down. So you could have like these large protective orgs like in the front of the city. Blending in, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I love this.
You know what? Now you gave me another idea. What if there's statues out in the front and the statues come to life? They could be like, you could have these cool statues that are painted in like statues, and that's part of the whole narrative is that these guys sort of, I have some other brushes, I'll have to find them that I made once. If not, I can make you some. Yeah, because hold on, let me get back to paintbrush land. Where's Phil's brushes? Phil's main right here. Because check it out. What you could do is you can make these guys look like they're like statues here in the front. And they might actually come alive and be like these monuments outside. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I
you
love
could
this
have,
whole change. Sorry, I love the whole change to like active defense as more opposed to like passive defense, the way I was envisioning it.
yeah. Well, either way, if you expand your composition like this, you could still go another inch or two to the left, and it really adds so much more to the whole storytelling narrative, don't you think? You know?
Oh, yeah.
So cool. All right. Well, thanks for letting me paint on top of it and add to that. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for adding to it.
Okay. No, my pleasure. I love doing stuff like this. It's fun. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. So yeah, it's going to be a really great piece. The great thing is you already got the castle down. You have all that stuff to find. So now you get to just expand out and add some texture. And I can give you those dragon brushes, and then you can put a couple orgs or warriors out there that protect it, you know. And if you wanted to, you can even widen it more to the left, and you could add another opposing army coming in, you know.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, you could have their silhouette shapes in there too. So there's all kinds of goodness that you can start to put into that piece. Okay, excellent. All right, thank you, Connie. All right,
Thank you,
my pleasure. Did I miss anybody's work?
Yes, mine. Mine. I don't know if it uploaded a little late, but also while you're talking, I worked on it more, so I uploaded a second version of it.
Okay, we got time. I can go get it. I just got to make sure what time we've done. We're at 1:15 today. I have a couple appointments with students, so I need to make sure I make those on time. Let me go find it really quick. So let me see. Dart 148, Project 2, Tundra, Detail Light Mixture, and Leone was okay. That was it. Uploaded 10:41. So let me download Leone's, and then I also had Brianna's, and
Yeah, I uploaded one recently too because I was working on it while you were talking.
That's okay.
I uploaded one before that, but then I was like, no, I can work on it more, so I did.
It's all right. Here I'm grabbing them right now. So I got Brianna's right there. Okay, and then Leone's is downloaded. And all right, give me 1 second. Wrong folder. So okay, there's Leone's. Let me drag and drop that one into Photoshop. Okay, and then we'll come back to that. And got Brianna's number 2, right? Brianna?
Yeah, number
Okay, cool. And I'm going to put that one in there. Okay, cool. All right, we'll start here. All right, Brianna. The snowfall stuff, I'd leave that to the very end. Save it on a
Okay.
layer and just turn it off. I like it. It's cool, but what really works is getting the pattern of the snow, the way snow wisps and falls, sort of curves. But don't worry about that now. We can put that in at the end. If I have to pick one of these in terms of composition and scale, I like the bottom one, I think, the most. What about
yeah,
you?
that's the one I was kind of.
Yeah, good. I think the reason why I like that the most is the castle is in a good position. Now, the castle is a little bit in the middle there. What you could do is hold on a minute. Let me see if I can pull this off. Grab that color, put that on the base here. Is if you were to take this castle, it's sort of in the middle. So this is what you could do, Brianna. You could take it, and if you move it over here a little bit more, it'll off-center the castle. And if you make it a little bit smaller, you could fit it in about there. Now it won't be in the middle. It'll off-center part of the sketch. And what you could do, let me go to brush here, then you could just sort of paint this feel of that little cliff in there. And then you just get some of your surrounding sky back in there like this. What do you think?
Yeah,
moves
I
it-
like that.
Yeah, it's not quite in the middle, and it's off a little bit more. And we get some of that other detail you had, that rock coming back in there like that. So now we moved it out of the composition. It balances the composition just a little bit more by moving it just a teeny bit to the right. Okay. Cool.
Thank you, Phil.
All right, my pleasure. Good work. Nicely done. Yeah, I think that'd be cool. All right, good job. And next over
Thank
here,
you.
we had Leonie. Okay. All right.
I
I-
think the best for the castle is look like a resort.
Yeah, you're right. The castle looks more like a resort. It's like in a
I will fix it.
Austrian ski village, you know?
I will fix that.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, fix that. And then the other thing is this little guy here, your little robot, he's that little flying mech, he's a little too bright to blend into right there. It would be better if you had the mech here sort of in the foreground. And there's a reason for that. The reason why we do that in storytelling is maybe you guys go back to your days of children's books. And one of the great things about a narrative is when we can see the pathway and the transition. So if you have a guy that's here, that's a mech, like this in the foreground with somebody else, it shows our whole pathway of how he has to circumvent all that land to get there. It's a great narrative tool. It's been used forever. It's came from the golden age of illustration, which was when Europe and America was first being built, and the United States was coming of form. We didn't have news channels. So illustrators were really important people that would illustrate out news and pictures of war and all kinds of stuff. And it's easier to show that transition by having the characters stage left and showing them going towards that. So yeah, I would stage your characters here, have them in the foreground. That'll set up the narrative. And then you have this redesign your castle so it's not like an Austrian resort. And I think you'll be good to go.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
And oh, my pleasure. And all of this looks beautiful in here. It's a really fun, flowing composition. In fact, I might consider where your midground is here, I would maybe overlap this and then make the castle a little bit lighter behind it. because then it creates more depth. You're creating a layer of 1, 2, and then you get to 3. Right now, you're only at 2. So if you just sort of find a way to create a little bit more depth in here, heck, even put another layer in like this, then come in and put the castle layer in the back, you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of transition, which will really push the depth and feel inside the piece. Okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you, Leonie. Did I miss anybody else? Really quick, let me take roll before I let you guys go for today. And obviously, we're going to meet again next class, and obviously try to fix. We're still in this rough phase, trying to add some detail. We had quite a bit of changes today, so I'm going to sort of slow down and let you guys make those changes. So what I'm going to do is in our folder, I'm going to put a new folder, and I'm going to call it Rough Pass 2. And this will be, because we had some corrections, actually, this will be Rough Pass 3. And then I'm going to put the date is going to be March 3rd in there. I'm not even looking at the chat room anymore because it's going crazy right now. So as far as roll, I have Connie here, Naomi, Leonie, Brianna, I got Josh, Sochi was here, right? I had Sochi. Right, was Sochi here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, there you are. I'm sorry. It's hard when I look at the black boxes, it's hard to see people. Alex was here. Was Giselle here? I believe she was. I'm just calling. Giselle, give me a shout out. You here? Actually, maybe she wasn't. I thought she was here earlier, but maybe I'm wrong. No, Giselle.
Oh, hello. Sorry, my mic was on mute.
Oh, there you are. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Hi.
Brandy, what about Farisa? Was Farisa here today?
I'm here.
Okay, there you are. Thank you. And then Chris, I have Raul, Jahida. Jahida here? No Jahida? Okay. and
Hi,
then-
sorry, I'm here. My microphone wasn't working.
Oh, that's okay. I can't, sometimes if you guys are silent, it doesn't show me your cam window. I can't see you. So thank you. And then I got Rachel here.
Welcome.
I got Haley. What about Mark? Mark, you here?
I'm here.
Okay, there you are. I got River. I got Connor. I got Ciro. what about Sonia? Was Sonia here today?
Here.
Okay. And Eric was here. And what about Carrie? Carrie? No Carrie. I'm not seeing Carrie in there. Okay, you guys are free to go. Thank you very much. And we'll look at your work and paint again on it a little bit more on Wednesday. Okay? Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Take care. See you later. Bye-bye.
Can I set up an appointment date to meet with you? I want to see some props
yeah.
I'm designing.
Yeah, you know what? Hold on 1 minute, because as I'm talking to you, I did get a reply back from another student. And I have, let me see, I got Sochi tomorrow. I got, Kang then. I have Thursday open.
Thursday after class?
Yeah, you want to do Thursday
Or
after class? Let's do Thursday after class.
Okay.
I'm gonna put Alex.
And we
1
can also
p.m.
I can also show you how the grade looks on my end as well. If it's still weird on your end.
Okay.
And if all else fails, I'll just reformat all
I'll
the
look it up
stuff.
again. I'll look it up again because I got my list. I'm going to try to go through. I have a couple meetings with students today, and then I'll go through and take a look at it again. Okay.
Okay.
All right,
See you,
Alex.
Phil.
Thank you, buddy. Take care.
You too.
All right. Did anyone else have any questions before I head off to my meetings?
You have meetings right now?
Yeah, I have a meeting coming up when class is done here in 5 minutes or so.
Oh, okay.
What's up, Chris?
I just wanted to go over my painting again one more time really quickly, but if you have to head out, that's fine.
No, I got a couple minutes before I got to go.
Okay, yeah, because you up or make you late to your meeting. So
No, that's okay. I have a couple minutes. We might just pull it up in the Photoshop. So I do the painting's great. You have that nice like dotty feel to it. The footsteps are going into a whole another world of like perspective, and they're gonna be accurate. It can be a real pain in the butt, you know.
Okay.
So that's
yeah.
I like the idea,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah. Let me hit share screen.
Yeah, 'cause I was hoping to give it like an S composition with the trail, but if you say it's not working, I don't mind taking it
No,
out.
it is working, but an S composition this is more like a C. An S is going to be like this. It's going to curve, and then it's going to curve more, and then it's going to wrap. There's going to be more detail in that composition.
More wrapping, right?
Yeah, more
Okay.
bending.
So like the curves would
Look,
okay, the
that's an
curves would be
S,
more
buddy.
exaggerated then.
That's the S curve,
Mhm.
you know? So you want to push that. And
Right.
the other thing you want to be careful of is here, that's over a hill. This thickness is that's more thickness than here. It's the other way around. You want this to have more thickness because it's closer to you. Then as it goes, remember, if you draw through the shape, it's going to go over the hill, then it's going to come down, then it's going to go this way and curve. If it does that, it's going to be like this. You see that?
Okay.
Yeah, so part of that is,
Yeah.
look, you got to draw through the shape and figure out, you can see it happening. You can see the turn, how it's like a ribbon. That ribbon's going to get shorter in perspective. So this distance from here to here has to be the greater than that distance right there. Okay?
Okay.
If
How would you feel if there wasn't like a track in there? Because I initially wanted to. I initially didn't have the idea of having, but I threw it in there in order to have an attempt to make it look somewhat visually interesting, so that it's not just like look like just pouring layers of snow on top of each other.
Here's my take on that, Chris.
Mhm.
Does the track make or break the piece? If the track's gone, it doesn't make or break the piece. The part that's visually interesting about your piece are these cool banners and that's what's visually interesting about your piece. The track is not making the piece. When I first looked at it, I didn't read that as a track. I thought it was just like a road and someone had carved something into it. That's it. It didn't register me to think of the cart being there and all that stuff. So to me, that's not visually interesting. What's visually interesting is this
There's
soft,
everything else.
patchy, exactly, the soft, patchy feel you have. It's this illustration style and the way you made these very soft, it'll be you coming in and putting light textures and blending in the ground. Maybe on the way to this city, since you have these guys here, they look like fallen, those look like fallen banners from other people, right? So fallen banners, what happens when we see a helmet here? What happens when there's a sword here? When there's part of an armor here? What happens when there's, you know what I mean? I would make it look like a wasteland out here. And in that case, I would break the trail down. I would have the trail come in here. I would S it more. I'd have it curve like that, or actually I like the other way we had it before. I would curve your trail sort of like this, coming in here, coming this way. And then after it dips down there like that, it would come here and curve that way, like that. Then it would come up here and curve and wrap into the front there, like that. And then, you come down here, make that a little bit thicker right there. Have a couple mounds, have a skull lying in there, have an old shield lying there. Then you come back here and then you could, maybe there's a protective entrance like this. And then part of this stone continues forward to here like this. And that's the entryway. A lot of cities have entryways like this, and then you come along here and put jagged rocks around all the base of that city. That makes it really hard to try to invade or penetrate that city. See that? See how that composition has changed? Dude, come right in here and put a big giant rock and put some dude's skull sitting right like this in the foreground. Look at that. You know what I mean? Like that. Put a sword and sticking out of the ground right there. And just look at how now it's changed. Now it has a much more menacing, threatening feel. Put a shield, a couple of the little bumps here. When you break down part of that ground, in there, put a couple little elements there. And look at that. Look at how much more threatening it is now.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's looking way better now.
And dude, put these big rocks in here like that. Look at that. That's evil. You big pointy rocks. You're not going to want to go there. Everyone that goes on their way there. And then what I would do to bring your eye up in the castle, I would create a stone edge and I would put a curve on it like this.
Mm-hmm.
Because now that brings your eye up to the castle. And then you'll be able to see underneath
Okay.
that. And then you see a little bit, and look at that. See, now that curve brings our eye back up in there. You have this huge, then I'd come back here on this level now and put some other little rocks around there. So it's a very, very dangerous place. That's not Happy Town. You know what I mean? It's a dangerous,
Yeah.
threatening place to be in there, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like what you're putting here.
Yeah, take us. So I'm just going off your S and adding more to it. You have a beautiful, everything you did in it is great, but figure out the perspective of that city so you can
Mhm.
put the highlights on there correct and then do it in your graphic style. Dude, it's going to be gorgeous. Can you take a screenshot of that?
Yeah, I would take one right now.
Okay, or I'll leave it. It'll be in the
Um,
video right here. You can find the video and take a screenshot.
Okay, I already captured the screenshot. But I really like the ideas that you threw in here.
Okay.
It looks really cool.
Cool.
I was also gonna ask about the rendering, but you seem to like it.
Oh, I like your
A lot
style.
of issues with rendering.
It's that graphic fun style, and you can still have a lot of fun with it. Put some of these other rocks and elements in there, and then we can come back and talk about overlaying some nice graphic textures and some other cool elements on there. Okay.
Okay, yeah, for sure. I'll try to get some of these things up for Thursday.
Sounds good, Chris. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Thanks for your feedback.
Anytime, man. Anytime. I'm going to run to my meeting. Take care. All right.
All right, you too.
All right, see you,
See ya.
bud.